Welcome back to Sparkles Corner, and there's still some pictures. When I was a little girl, once a year, my mother would take all of us to a place called Whalen Park in Lunenburg, Massachusetts, which closed in the year 2000. It opened before I was born. Let's see. It's an abandoned American amusement park now, which is sad, because at the time it had many cool rides, and it opened in the late 1800s and closed in the year 2000. Is now abandoned. Okay, it was a lot different than the parks we know today. You had a choice. You would get a red string with a clip that would hang over it if you wanted to pay $10 a person. Right. And so my mother would never do that. Okay, she would take $1 on each of us. We would get a string of tickets, and she would pack a picnic lunch. We would spend the day of it. My father was working, and she said, okay, you have to make these tickets go. So for each of us 5 kids, we would get a big long string of tickets, and on each of those, if you had bought the red string, you could go on all the rides all you want, okay? But otherwise, you didn't, and at that time it said it had the highest roller coaster in the world. Of course, it doesn't anymore. And it had many rides on it. It had many rides. This is what the roller coaster ride parks look like. Okay, it had a ride called the Scrambler. And see, this was at that time considered the tallest roller coaster in the world. And be long lines. People would be going on it. And you'd go through a little house like this. It just had one roller coaster in the whole park. Okay. This ride with the handles on it. The people could turn it and make the car spin as it would go around on a rail, around on a big rail. Okay. And this was called Topsy-Turvy. I hope they got a picture. Here it is. This was my favorite ride, the Scrambler. It was called the Scrambler. That was my favorite ride. Go around in a big circle like this. You could control it to go higher and lower, but you didn't have to. And this is strictly a kiddie ride, which I was able to go on because I was a kid. And you go around in a big circle like that. This another ride. I can't remember what the name of that was, but I picked my favorite rides. See, the people enjoyed the rides back then. This ride was called the Whip. It stayed on the ground, and it'd go around in a big circle like this. It would go around in a big circle, and it would whip you. It would rip you. You would hold on for dear life. It's kind of like the Scrambler, but instead of you controlling the heights going up and down, and scrambling like that, you would hold on to the bars like this, and it would all of a sudden speed up and whip you like. It was fun. And the one day a year, it was always in July we went, so it was kind of hot like that. And so they had in it a Ferris wheel. They had in it a house of mirrors. They had in it a haunted house. The basic rides. It wasn't a big park like Disney. It was considered a very small park. And it was actually on the water, but we never got to see. And they had all these booths on the water where at night they would shoot off fireworks. But my mother would never stay there. We would go there. We would leave after my father went to work. We would spend the day there. Then we would have to be home by 4 or 5 o'clock. And so she would always pack 2 peanut butter and marshmallow sandwiches and drinks. So we would have a lunch. There was a little picnic area there. And there was also a roller skating ring there. And I remember asking my mom if we could go in the roller skating ring sometime. And she said no. So I don't know if it's still there or not, but I never got to roller skate. And my mom said no. And so, you know, I didn't mean that day we were going to the park. I just thought something we could try once to see if we liked it. But I didn't, you know, never get to do that. So, and basically, we didn't stay with our mother. She said, all of you just go off and do what you want to do. So, my sister and I would stay together, and my 3 brothers would all stay together. And so, my sister and I would go on the same rides. But nowadays, that's unheard of. Because that's how a child could get kidnapped. My mother, she would go on her rides by herself and do whatever she wanted to do. And I know it wasn't safe parenting or good parenting, and when I went on vacation or I went anywhere, I'd tell my kids to hold my hands and stay by me. That was it. To hold my hands, stay by me. We would all go together. My husband, 2 kids in the middle, holding our hands, and then holding my hand. So, you know, we all stayed together. I never knew about children being kidnapped, molested, or attacked, or assaulted, or anything like that when I was a kid. My mother never told me about being safe. She never educated me on being safe. And so I guess we're all lucky we just survived to grow up because, you know, in a heavy, big theme park like that, that's, in a theme park with a lot of people, that's how kids get taken. So what my parents did was very unwise. But, you know, we did that once a year starting at like when I was 10. So we went like 4 times, once a year for 4 years. And, which was good. And in the small town where I lived in Fitzwilliam, they used to be called the penny candy store, okay? Where I would collect pennies from the streets and nickels, and I would save them. So once a year, my mom would say, tell everybody, get your pennies, you know, because she never gave us money allowance for doing chores. We had to do chores or else. There was no ifs, ands, or buts, because my parents were bullies. And so I resented her, honestly, for some of chopping wood, lugging trees, having to do dishes every night. Well, my brothers never had to or anything. But that's neither here nor there. Let's not talk about the negative. So when I used to walk to school, I used to look on the ground for pennies and nickels, and I used to save them. I never had a piggy bank. I wanted one, but I never had one. So I just put them in a top drawer on my dresser. My sister had her dresser, I had my dresser. Each one of my brothers had their dressers. Three brothers shared the same room. My sister and I shared the same room. And so she would say, collect your pennies and dimes. Then however much you saved up for over a year, everywhere I walked, I would look for pennies and nickels and dimes. So then at the end of the year, when we would go the once a year, she'd say, come on everybody, we're going to go to the penny store. That's what it was called, the penny candy store. And so, I don't know, I don't think it closed when I was a kid, so I don't know if there's a picture of it. Let's see. Penny Candy Store, Fitzwilliam, New Hampshire. Okay, yeah, they does it. It closed in it was called the 1950s Penny Candy Store. It was in 1950. It opened, and it said it closed in 1967, but they got a picture of it right there. It was a huge building, you know, like that. Okay. There's no outside picture. They got a picture of it from then. Okay. And so then I used to take the penny candies and I used to hide some of them in my drawer, and I would take and eat one a day, strictly eat one a day. Yeah, so I didn't know it opened up in 1950 because I wasn't alive then. So the penny candy store in Fitzwilliam opened up in 1950, and it said it closed in 1967. So naturally, after it closed, we couldn't go anymore. But so we went a few times, and it was once a year thing. Hi, Ren. That's my good boy. So we used to do that, and they had penny candy and all that. They even had penny candy cigarettes, which I didn't agree with. My brothers used to buy it, and you could blow out of it, and it would make a puff of smoke 3 times. And so after they bought it a couple times, my parents were so stupid. She accused my brothers of smoking and beat them. And it wasn't. They kept telling her it was candy. It was candy cigarettes, and you could blow 3 puffs out of it. And so after that, they never bought it again. But there's plenty of other. I remember that because that was so unjustified. Hearing my brothers scream, getting punished for something that they didn't even do. That was their solution of everything. Even though my brothers insisted that it was just candy cigarettes, she didn't believe her, and so my mother got so mad she beat them. And that was her solution. My parents' solution to everything. They never explained anything. They would just bully you. And so when we went back to the penny candy store again, I reminded my brother, I said, look, don't buy the candy cigarettes because parents will beat you again accusing you of smoking when you're not. Which is so ridiculous. I don't, because in reality, when that you didn't know what a cigarette was, they didn't even know what a cigarette was. What they did was very wise, because then, if it was me, I'd wonder, what the heck is they talking about? What's so terrible about a cigarette? They might go look into it and try it because of what they did. That's the way, in reality, it reacted to my three brothers. So because of that incident, now my three brothers all smoke. And its reality is their fault. But you can't change the past. And I told them, I said, you know, it's their choice. That's the way it is. But the penny candy store, I enjoyed going to, and towards, the end of the life of the penny candy store, when we went down there, we were the only ones there. And so my sister earned money babysitting, so she had lots of money to spend at the penny candy store. So another way, when my father would go to the dump, you would have to pay to go to the dump, and you had to pay to go to the dump and swim. You would go there. They would weigh your trash. Then you would take it in there, and you would have to, they would look in your car and take a guess how many bags you've got and stuff like that, or what you've got, whether it's mattresses or whatever, and you would have to pay to take your stuff to the dump. And so while they were there doing it, they said, go ahead and kid. So we used to go to the dump and pick out bottles. Then we would take it to the store, glass bottles, and we would get some change for it. That would be another way of getting money for the penny candy store. We get either a nickel or a penny or something like that for the bottles, because they were in the dump. We would rinse out the bottles, and then we would walk down to the store, down to the corner store, and get some money, literally get some change. And that's another way we would earn some money. So I used to like going to the dump, because we would pick for bottles, and I would also say, well, at least we would wear gloves, and I'd say at least that stuff's not going to stay in the landfill, because it was a big landfill. That's all it was. All the stuff just got piled up on the dump. They didn't do anything with it, so I don't know why they were paying for it. The dump just was piles and piles of garbage. That's all it was. It was a big old landfill. And so, that's how it was. And and then another way, once a year we would go trick-or-treating, and the parents say, wait till dark, and tell us to go out on our own to go trick-or-treating, which wasn't even safe. We would get, sometimes we would get popcorn balls, but we mainly got candy. And it was a lot of the same stuff. And so I would put that in my candy drawer and save that throughout the year. We never got gum. We would only get candy, mainly all hard candy. Never any candy bars. No bags of M&Ms. I don't even know if M&Ms existed when I was a kid. I don't know. It did. M&Ms did exist when I was a kid. So, we would basically walk around on our own, go all over the place, knocking on the door saying trick or treat. And if somebody wasn't home, they'd have a sign out there just to take one candy. So I would just take one candy. And so that way their place wasn't done. And so, nobody ever decorated for Halloween. I didn't see really any decorations on any houses for Halloween. Didn't do that. But, you know, mostly every house did trick-or-treating. Candy. My mother would go out and buy bags of candy and give it to the kids too, because she would say if we didn't, they would toilet paper our house and our yard. Never saw anybody do it, but she said it would. So, I mean, that was one. And then when I got to the age of 12, I started babysitting. And like a stupid fool, because my mother was always crying poor, because she was always spending more money than she earned on buying clothes for her own self. I never got new clothes. I got one pair of shoes a year, and when I grew out, I had to wear them, and then I had to go bare feet. And so, my idea, and she was always saying, because she had a lot of kids, the reason she was poor, truth is, because she was spending money on herself for clothes. Her closet was as big as my bedroom, and it was heaped up with clothes just for her. She would go to a place called Jordan Marsh and fill up her station wagon with clothes just for her. And it was so boring for me, I had to go and follow her. I don't even know why she did. I never got anything. And she would say, "You don't need nothing. You ain't got nothing." So, how we got clothes is we got hand-me-downs from my sister. And so, how she got her clothes, she was babysitting, keeping the money for herself, and she was buying clothes for herself. But I'm not allowed to do that. But I chose to read. I chose to read. And so, my sister basically had the babysitting wrapped up. I don't know how she found all the places to babysit, but she did. And she would spend it on herself. And so she was smart. So she was getting in-style clothes for herself. She was getting toothpaste for herself, toothbrush that she liked for herself. She was getting floss for herself. My mother never bought floss, and I asked her to. She's saying no. Just brush your teeth, that was it. She never bought the toothpaste. My aunt, who lived in New Jersey, worked for a Colgate company, so she would come up twice a year and bring cases of toothpaste. I think she would buy them and give them to my mom, so she never bought toothpaste. She would only allow us to brush our teeth once a day, and that was it. And to use as little as possible. Because she would say the toothpaste had to last till Aunt Jenny came back for another visit. So when she was low on toothpaste, she'd contact her, she'd come back for another visit, bring a case of toothpaste. She said she made Colgate toothpaste. And so, you know, and I had the idea, when I started earning money, I got the idea to earn money helping people clean their houses. And I would do that. I used to give it all to my mother. because she made me feel like it was my fault she was poor. If I hadn't been born, she wouldn't have been poor. But truth is, she would have, because she was a clothesaholic, as she would call herself. She had a whole big, huge box, bigger than my arms could go, this high, just full of shoes. She had about, must have 200 pairs of shoes. I don't even know how she could wear them all. And she had just a whole, oh, it's ridiculous. She's still that way. She's got 6 dresses in her room full of clothes for herself, plus a walk-in closet. She's still that way. And she just, I don't know what, it's just her thing. It's just her thing. So, I would have liked to have her spend some of Daddy's money on me, so I could have had in-style clothes. I kept asking her for it, and she didn't like me asking for things, so she would beat you for that. Because she said kids don't deserve it, and so it's very selfish, and it's just how she is, and I know how she is. But past is the past. Because when she moved down here, she lost all that stuff. Because she didn't take it with her. So, after I moved down here, she moved down here. And so did my brothers. They all moved down here. They followed me. Came down here to go far. Except my sister stayed up there. I realized you can't escape, can't escape being relatives. First it was really hard, but then, this is my home. This is a much better place. But, okay. Enough of the negative drama, but all true. Okay, how did other ways did I earn money? I was never given any money from my grandparents, but I didn't care. The best part of my childhood was my grandparents. My gosh. My grandparents were great people. I wish they had lived long enough to know my kids. My kids would have loved them to death. They would have. That was the best part of my childhood was my kids. Now about my childhood, we lived on a dead-end road. We had huge rocks, which we would climb and hide in. And trees. And we had a bog. It was on the property. I don't know what good. One year, they took cranberries out of the bog, and my mother tried to make something with the cranberries, but it didn't set. Cranberry jelly, and it didn't set. It wasn't done right, and it didn't taste good either. And then another year, she decided to raise chickens. But, of course, we got stuck to do all the work, and I was afraid of chickens. I was a little girl. I was afraid of chickens because they had beaks. I was afraid they would hurt me. I didn't realize chickens were gentle creatures at the time. So she put them in an extra building on the place, and so we had to go clean up the chicken coop all the times and collect the eggs, and it was just more work for us. I don't know what her idea was with that. And then at the end of a while, she killed all the chickens, plucked them and froze them for us to eat later. And then she said, asked everybody, I'm thinking of getting more chickens. I told her, you're going to get more chickens. You're doing them because I'm not going to do them. Because I had to cut down trees, lug wood. I had to do dishes every day. And I had to take out garbage every day. And, because it would go in the second back house. Then I was taking care of the stupid chickens every day. And I was scared doing it too. I kept telling them I was afraid of them, but they said, of course not. And so that took away time from my doing my schoolwork and studying. And though every time I tried to do schoolwork and studying, when did I ever have any time? Because it was always darn this or darn that. And then finally when I was done doing things for her, at light she wouldn't let me turn the light on to see to do my homework, so I was doing homework in the dark. But because my mother said I was a girl, I didn't need an education. She didn't want me to get good grades in school. When I got on the honor roll at school, and I got all A's and B's, my mother came and yelled at me, "How could you do that to me?" and everything, and started beating me. I resented her for it because I would try hard, never missing a day, doing all my work at school, and it was hard. And in science class, I was trying to do work. Look, I'm sure I'm not the only one, who had that, but to this day, I couldn't figure out why she would say, "How could you do that to me?" Instead of her being proud I made on the honor roll. She beat me and said, "How could you do that to me?" And she was beating me. I can never, to this day, never understand nor forgive, and I do not know why she felt females didn't need to be educated when she was a female. I didn't understand that. But that, hey sweetheart, that's how that was. So doing that made it hard for me to earn extra money to go to the penny candy store to save penny candy. So that was basically the best way of doing it. Earning penny candy was looking for a penny, a dime, and nickel on the ground. Looking for, bottles. That was the two best way of doing it. Because when I used to clean other people's houses for money, I would just give that to my mother. I was so stupid because I thought I'd give her that, I could help her get out of debt. I didn't understand that my mother's type of person, if she made $1 million a month, she would spend 10. She would always spend more than what her income was. And so, that, I didn't understand it then. So, I even for a while stopped eating. When I was 16, I quit eating, figuring if I quit eating because of, my mother always crying poor. And I didn't realize that she was always going and spending all them tons of clothes on her was keeping my father in debt, and it wasn't my fault. But she was that kind of way to make you feel terrible. So I ended up, being in the hospital and dying. Legally dying for 2.5 minutes because of starvation. But, that's, how, life was back then. But my Nana, when I was visiting my grandparents, I always had plenty to eat. Always had a good luck. And I didn't mind washing dishes and helping out around my grandparents' place because they were so good to me. They actually loved me. I felt love, and caring from them. Because my grandparents were great. They had a dog, a poodle, a silver poodle named Missy when I was a kid. And she never had her on a leash because she would stay right by them. They had 5 acres of property. So she'd always follow them around. She would bathe them in the tub outside. She had a groomer literally come to the house and groom Missy. She didn't take him back then to a styling place. They came to the house and groomed him. And she had a little puffy tail on the tail, a little puffy tail, and down her little paws. She was real cute. I wish I had a picture of her. She was bred by my Uncle Paul and Aunt Carol. That was his second wife. And so they gave Missy to them. And the funny thing of it is when their breeding dog had puppies, they're born black and turn silver. But all the puppies she would sell. There was 2 purebred puppies that, you know, she would sell all the puppies. They were breeding dogs. They weren't pets. As she explained to me, then when they got to be 10 weeks old, she would sell them all. So it brought in a good amount of money for them. Hey, sweetie. So, I got off track. Those are the only ways I was able to earn money because it was out in the country. Yep. And, but yeah, that's all that. See, Whalen Park. Okay. Another place my parents took us because my mother liked it. To me, it was boring. She would go to a place called the name of the park. Greenberg Park, Greenville. Keep Park, no. It was Green something. Greenfield. Greenfield State Park. It's a campground. Okay, it was called Greenfield State Park. That's where she would go then. On my father's vacation, every single year, we would go there. And it was okay swimming in the lake. And she would cook over the open fire. And we slept in a big old army tent with cots. And that was the only good thing about it, was swimming. She never went into town. She never did any sightseeing or anything. And they had a place there that sold food. And one time, I saved up my money I earned and treated everybody to a hamburger and fries, which was good. Once, we all swam, and we didn't ever have any pets. Because my mother said pets were too expensive. And so we would go there, you know, and she would pay. I don't know what she paid. But we had to pay for to take a shower there, and the toilets there were pay toilets. You had to pay a dime for a toilet. To use the toilet. And a dime to use the shower there. They had. And you would swim in the lake. So, I mean, that that was, I could never figure out why she always wanted to go back to Greenfield State Park to camp. I could never see the point of it. She would bring down all these food and, you know, go to the store, bring canned goods, and buy military rations. She would cook them over the huts. She would cook them, you know, over the open fire there. You had to collect your own wood. If you didn't bring your own charcoal. I know a lot of people bought charcoal, they didn't. She would tell us to go around and collect wood and cook on the open fire. But it was something she enjoyed. It was what she liked to do. And I often asked, I saw on a TV commercial that there was a World's Fair then. I said, why don't we go that? That would be some fun for Daddy's vacation. And no. So the World's Fairs were stopped by the time I was growing up, so I never got the opportunity to go to one. It was something I always wanted to do. But I was told they were kind of like Disney World, so I can only take her solo of it. I don't even know where the World's Fair were. Now that would have been fun. But when I was a kid, you never really got what you wanted anyway, so that's life. So, I want to make it clear, I wasn't like my parents. I didn't dictate to them what they was going to do. I asked my kids before we went on vacation, I said, would you all like to go here? Would you like to do this? What would you like to do? And we went out to restaurants. Where would you like to eat? You know, it was not, I didn't dictate to them. But I think it was like that because my mother was on such a tight budget because she had such a huge charge card to Jordan Marsh. Huge charge bill from all of her clothes. So, you know, I think that has to do with it. I don't. But you know, I believe my mother has a Victorian attitude, and so, nobody's perfect. We all fall short of the glory. But, to me, I didn't look forward to it. It was the same thing every year, and it was boring, but I guess my father worked hard all year on the lead pot. He worked at Sterrett Tools on the lead pot, as he called it. And so it's his vacation, his money, so we had to do what he wanted to do to make him happy. Sometimes it'd be pretty cold in the morning, so we used to lay in the car awake. We were only allowed to bring our books, our clothes. We weren't allowed to bring any books or magazines to read or anything. And my mother didn't like me reading. She tried to force me to stay away from reading, which was my greatest pleasure. She had books in the house, but she wouldn't allow me to read them. And I couldn't figure out what I was thinking behind there was. And I said, look, I want to read something. She said, forget about it, but you're not going to. So I asked her if I could start walking to the library and read at the library. Nope, that wasn't allowed, so. And she told me if she had her way, I wouldn't have gone to school. She didn't want me to get an education. I can't believe that's the way my grandmother raised her. But it was her way of trying to keep me down. But I did start drawing stuff and painting, and a couple of my paintings are in a hotel in Jaffrey, New Hampshire. But it's by my birth name. And he loved them as in the past. And we did a charity thing, and I did some paintings, and they were all sold, and all the money went to charity. We didn't keep a penny. I don't know what the charity auction was for, but I don't have any of the newspapers. I left them up with my husband. So, that's some of the stories of my childhood. And with Whalen Park, Greenfield State Park, where we went. Oh yeah, and we swam at Laurel Lake once a year. She would take us there. I don't know why it was just once a year. We had quarries behind my house, and she wouldn't allow us to go there. But, you know, I couldn't figure out why it was just once a year. But, you know, I take away my mom away from TV, so I think that's what it was. I think she was addicted to television. Nothing wrong with watching TV, though. Nothing at all. You know. Okay. That's some more Seasparkle stories of her childhood. I hope you enjoyed this. Love y'all. Take care. As always, the fun never ends. The Seasparkles Corner. Bye, everybody. Stay tuned. Feel free to share. Feel free to subscribe.